thank you for joining us today for another amazing show and a terrific guest. We are talking about how artificial intelligence is helping organizations get a better picture of their sustainability performance today. Welcome to the Tech and Space Leaders Show, where we learn lessons from leaders of the next frontier. I am your host, Lisa Dreher, and I'm really excited to introduce our guest for today, Lee Berry. He is the founder and CEO of Emerald Solutions. Welcome to the show, Lee.
Hi, thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Absolutely. Maybe we can start by having you just give a little bit of background on yourself and Emerald Solutions.
Sure, had a little bit of a peculiar career, started in environmental law. And in environmental law, you have to wait for something bad to happen and then sue. And I wanted to have a passion in working in sustainability where my business did better. The more bad things that happened wasn't the place I wanted to be. Went and worked in the federal government and then spent 10 years in the corporate sustainability at the Fortune 500 working on sustainability. And over, I kept seeing the same issues, that large portions of the value chain, the supply chain, even for the large enterprises, were not able to report on their emissions and their climate risk. It was something that the cost and complexity priced a lot of small and mid-sized organizations out. So stepped out to found Emerald Solutions, specifically designed to build environmental reporting for small and mid-sized businesses.
Great, fantastic. So AI is everywhere, of course. We pitch this
It
show.
is. I
AI,
hear it's a thing. I hear it's a popular thing.
right? Exactly. So, what are we really looking at here in terms of the data specifically that we can leverage to help us with the sustainability side of things?
Sure, AI is a tool, like just about any tool, and if you use it correctly, it's great. If AI is a hammer and the solution you need is a nail, then it's absolutely connected. The problem is that right now, if you have a hammer, that everything looks like a nail, and sometimes it isn't. Sometimes the solution's a screw, sometimes it's a window, and hammer's not quite the right solution. One of the places that I think it is most useful for, and where we're in particular using it, is places that it hasn't previously been used because the data, the complexity, the issues were simply too difficult. The calculations for what climate risk is going to be, what the natural disaster impacts are going to be, particularly down the supply chain, were simply too complicated to run. It was something that it's not taking anybody's job because it was too hard, it was too much data, it just wasn't being done. Same thing for reporting on emissions down the value chain, all the way down to, I like to use a bakery as an analogy. You see the cupcake at the end, but tracing the emissions all the way back to where the wheat was grown, where the flour was milled, the packaging, the trees that came from it, that gets really complicated. And it's not, the AI using this and tracking across that big data isn't taking anybody's job from it. It is simply building out something that was too complex, too time consuming to build beforehand. And so the solutions that I think are most useful for AI are the ones that are large data, too difficult or too complex to previously be done. Those are the ones that I think are the perfect solutions for AI.
Wow, so that is a really big picture of sustainability. Where do you sort of draw the line in terms of what data you look at? Because that's a lot further back than I guess I was imagining.
Well, the hope is that it continues to get better, that you go back as far as you can and continue to push for getting better and better. I think one of the things that particularly a lot of small and mid-sized businesses struggle with is it's really complex and maybe I can't see all the way to the end, and so they don't begin the journey. They think, okay, well, I can't do it because I can't chase all the way back. But even if you look at the large enterprises, the Fortune 500s, they have huge portions that are estimated that say we can't see back that far. We can't trace all the way to the farm if I'm using the bakery. Now the bakery is much simpler than if you're using data chips and all the complex components that go into a lot of manufacturing. But the further and continuer you can go back and down into the supply chain, the better the information gets, the more accurate it gets. And it's like a journey of 100 miles. It begins with one step. Like you can't ever start tracing as far back as you go as you don't ever start.
Ah, interesting. What types of insights are, organizational leaders oftentimes not aware of?
One of the biggest is there's two different sides. One is emissions. What is a company's impact on the environment? The other is climate risk. What is the environment's impact on the company? Whether it's large enterprises or small businesses or startups, the smallest of small businesses, what they tend to focus on is what's happening right now. We were working with a pet supply company that was working on gabapentin, which is the most popular prescribed pet medication. It's for pain. Even my puppy dog that's normally sitting over there has it prescribed for her. And they were so focused on where and what, how we're getting this out there, our supply chains, our operations, let's keep building. When they took a pause to look at the climate risk, what they realized was 2/3 of the manufacturing for that particular product is in high climate risk areas, meaning that it's subject to natural disasters, extreme weather, floods, tornadoes, hurricanes. And when you have 2/3 of the base product of your supply and manufacture where it's at risk, that becomes really risky the longer and longer you plan to build out that business over 1, 3, 5, 10 years as you go. And so one of the biggest things is, and I see it from from the smallest to small to the biggest, is they are so focused on where and what they're building that they're not looking around the corner and what's going. And so the biggest thing that I see missing is understanding what the environment impact is going to be to the companies themselves.
Ah, interesting. What do you see most frequently in terms of what the distance is between sustainability goals and actual data?
That's another one where, like, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. I think the bigger thing to the commitments and the goals is, in sustainability, we're often really, really harsh. If they say, well, we're going to hit 100% renewables, if a company doesn't hit 100% renewables, they only hit 99%, that we start to complain. We start to, like, hey, you hit 90. One of the things I think we can do with some of these commitments is applaud the efforts on getting, okay, you didn't hit the A+, but maybe you got an A. Because I think there's some that's caused some companies to back off of commitments and say, okay, well, we're going to promise less. I like to compare it to, okay, if you had this as a financial goal and said you were going to raise $100 million and compare that to 100% renewable, and you hit $97 million, that's still a pretty big raise and a pretty big win. Whereas if they hit 97% renewable, all we talk about is kind of the 3%. So the first thing I'd caution is anybody who is concerned around this is to make sure and understand, are we applauding the wins instead of just highlighting the issues that are missing? And then where and what are we doing that empowers kind of the growth to close that gap? Is it a data issue? Is it something that we can't see and we need to build out? Or is it an actual solution? This doesn't exist for it. We don't have batteries large enough to swap out for electric planes yet. So is it that we need to put more emphasis and effort into the solutions themselves? Is it a data issue where we simply can't see it? Or is it that they're at 97% and we just need to cheer them on to get into 3% instead of highlighting that it's a negative?
Yeah. I guess, where are we at in terms of reporting requirements and regulatory? It seems like things have, I guess, changed since administration has changed. So how has that impacted, I guess, how focused companies are on sustainability?
In some ways, it's made it more difficult. There's a lot of states that when there was a federal standard, when the Security and Exchange Commission rule was in place, there was a federal standard. And even if there were some states that individually thought, okay, well, if we were setting the rule, we might set it a little bit higher than the federal standard. But as long as there was a singular standard, it was, okay, that's close enough for us. We're not going to spend the time, effort, political capital to build something out. With the Security and Exchange Commission rule being pulled, now there's no longer federal standard across this. And what we've started to see is states that are moving. You have California that's begun its reporting with SB 253 and 261, if anyone wants to look it up. But you also have Washington, Oregon, Illinois, a bunch of states in the Northeast that are working on moving it. And what's happened is you have a patchwork where everybody's a little bit different. They're close, but not quite exactly the same. And this is, not only is the data complex, but now the regulatory environment is complex, which makes it was already difficult when there was one standard, and now you have differing standards across it. There's also a lot of intentionally helpful, but sometimes confusing when you're looking from the outside frameworks that say, well, we're the logistics framework for how you report on emissions, or we're the manufacturing one, or we're, the transportation one. They can sometimes scare away small and mid-size. I won't even say small and mid-size. It can sometimes scare everybody away that say, I don't know what all those acronyms mean. It's anytime you see jargon or acronyms, it can be daunting to look at. And they all have the same base. They all have the same base of understanding where and how you calculate your greenhouse emissions, your impact on the environment, the environment's impact on you. And what I tell people, particularly when I'm working with our large enterprise or the small and mid-sized businesses working on this, is ignore the frameworks. Don't worry about the different, let's build out where and what you have. Then, once you have a good understanding of what your impact is on the environment and the environment's impact on you, then you can much more easily fill out whichever form it is. It's much easier to, it's like having all the answers, and no matter which, it may be question 2 instead of question 4 on this form, or it may be over here that they need it divided by 100 or your size. But once you have all the answers that you might need, all of that all the complexity of the frameworks and the regulations fall away.
How do you take, I guess, that information once you have gathered it and turn that into actual environmental commitments for an organization?
This is one of the great, again, this is a nail. If AI is a hammer, this is a great nail. It's one of the places that having large and complex data, large and complex frameworks, large and complex regulatory reporting requirements, the power of AI to comb through that complexity, to look for where and what the data is saying. One of the things I'll see is organizations that start working on a solution before they really know where they're at. Where we're going to do this. Was that really where your problem is? Is that really, is this going to actually have an impact? We were working with a different manufacturer that, like, all right, we're going to do this. We're going to put solar panels on all our roof. Great. Wonderful. Like, solar panels are great. Everybody should have solar panels. Is that really where your biggest issue is? And when we actually broke down the numbers behind the manufacturing, the thing that we saw that they were having huge impact across it was on their actual packaging. And a lot of it was recyclable, and even though they didn't have a recycling facility where they were locating in manufacturing, what we were able to partner them with was someone who actually came and claimed that and reused it and resold it. And so not only did they end up, okay, now it's not just straight waste, but now we're actually making money selling back this recycling. That's always the greatest solutions that you can find in sustainability, is not just, hey, this is good for the environment, this is actually good for the business. Now we're not just dumping this packaging that we were previously using, we're selling it, and now somebody else is getting a benefit from the reuse for it. And so understanding the numbers helps drive the commitment. Where are you actually seeing the issues, and then how can you actually connect across it? And beyond just that, I think another one, particularly for customer facing, for those out there that have looked at it, there's also a connection to customers, like where and how can you meet customers where they're at. There was a local farmer that we were working with named John that, hey, I want to, I'm a farm that's kind of out there that nobody kind of knows where and what we're doing, or this impact, or what I'm trying to do for it. And helped him partner with the local park to help plant trees, have a little community garden for it that's connected to where and what he's doing. So it had less of an overall impact on his books, but was able to connect more to the community that he was committed to serving on. Like, here's where and what I'm doing, and I'm bringing a little piece of it to near where you are, so it has a better connection and understanding for what we're doing.
Wow, that's amazing. So it's really interesting that you could actually see like positive cash flow come out of
always the best as well. When sustainability is also great for the business.
Yeah, which I think might be surprising for some people. How do you actually take those, once you define those commitments and you find those areas where there are opportunities, and I think you've kind of alluded to this already, but how do you, I guess, define what those practical steps are from those commitments?
The first one is using the data to understand where you are. And then it is sitting down with the small businesses, the large enterprises, whoever it is that we're connecting across and working with, and figuring out where is it you actually want to go. What is then feasible? Like, okay, we want to head to there. We have a route now. Like we have an understanding of where we're at with the data. We have a destination in mind on where we want to get to. And now it's much easier to start building the plan on how you get there. Because you know where you are and know where you want to go. And now we can actually use the data to track along that. And so it's not just throwing goals out there, which there's a lot of particularly small businesses that are targeting customers that care about sustainability that will set a goal without having a good understanding of where they are, where they want to go. We set a goal. Okay, well, let's figure out the data, and let's figure out a way to track your measurements. If it's again, using the journey of 100 miles, like, how are we going to start getting there? How are we going to track our pace? How are we going to track our steps and our progress along that? And then identifying and helping the customers understand like what pitfalls they may run into. What are some hurdles that they're going to run into that the data sees? That's where the climate risk. What is the impact to them for risk and resilience? So it's not setting a goal that doesn't have a plan for when issues arise. There's kind of no plan that survives first contact or first issues or first hurdles for it. And so not only setting out how we're going to track it, but how we're going to respond when there's issues that come up. And building out where and what for that tracking makes companies much more confident in saying where their progress. It's not just a lofty goal that we're putting up on the wall where we have really no idea how we're going or getting there. Like, no, we have now a plan. We have an understanding of how we're tracking our progress as we're making and a way to respond when the issues come up. And so Instead of kind of looking like greenwashing or claims or eco-friendly or stickers out there, they are regularly tracking their progress. That if a customer, a client, a regulator or an insurer wants to know, like, no, here's our progress, here's exactly how we're tracking it, and we know how we're going to respond to these hurdles when they come up.
Interesting. Okay, so here's the thing.
Okay.
AI is kind of known for perhaps not being super environmentally friendly. So how do you kind of, I don't know, resolve that challenge when using AI to support a sustainability initiative?
Well, one of the things I like to tell people is AI is not all the same, depending on where and what you're using it for. It has large impacts, whether it's a text, whether it's a picture, whether it's a large enterprise that's using continual tracking across it. The impact for it is significantly different. So, clarifying where and how you're using it. Ours is a closed system. Then one, because it maintains our ability to traceability for audit. Our reporting requires like, hey, not just how did you cut, like, hey, here's a cool answer that AI came up with, but how did you figure it out? And so ours has to be deterministic and traceable. So if audited, if a regulator says, how did you come up with these numbers, that is traceable back. But the other thing with AI and with data centers for it, it gets back to the old adage that you can have it good, you can have it cheap, or you can have it fast, but you can only have two out of the three. If folks are interested and want to go out and look, like data centers can be built really well with very minimal impact. They can have renewable energy that's additive. So, hey, we're going to use X amount of energy. We are going to build X amount of at least X amount of renewable energy. So we're not only using that, but we're giving some back to the grid. They can use technology for zero water cooling. So the amount of water used is about the same as a local restaurant. Very, very minimal for such a large facility. But you can't have it good, fast, and cheap. And right now the focus is on fast and cheap. And so AI is one of the ones that, like, we actually have pretty good sustainability solutions. You can go and look where they have additive renewable energy. They put more energy on the grid than they're taking away. They're taking very minimal water usage from it. They're considering the local impact to native plants and species for it. But you can't do that while also going fast and cheap. And right now the focus is on fast and cheap. And so when folks are concerned about where and what with AI and data centers, not only is it pushing back on, hey, do we actually need the expanded growth for it, but are we doing it correctly? Are we making sure that we're not just focused on fast and cheap, but making sure that we're doing and building it good?
Absolutely. So it sounds like you also often find that organizations are already gathering data that can support a sustainability initiative. What is some of that information that they may already have their hands on, and how do you bring that to light?
There's the issue isn't data. The issue is too much data. Even at the smallest organizations, the smallest of small, at the startups that we talk about, the issue isn't data. The issue is we have all of this. We have this financial data that's sitting over here. We have our usage data that's sitting over here. We have operational data here over here. We have our supply chain data for where and what we're getting it from. Because even the smallest companies, even if it's pens, you have something that you're buying or purchasing that you're utilizing across it that has some long trail of impact back on it and has some consideration that needs to be taken into account on the risk. Now, this is a pen, like I don't necessarily need other pens for it. Like I could swap it out for another one. But if this is a vital portion of where and what I'm doing, and I don't have a plan for how and what it is, even if I'm a small startup, it is vitally important to understand it. So the issue actually we're seeing when we're working with companies isn't an issue of like, hey, I don't have the data. It's, I have all these data sitting in different places, and I have a lot of it. And again, getting back to the cost and complexity to navigate it, it's not replacing a person. What we're utilizing AI for isn't, hey, we're taking Rick's job over there, because it's simply not getting done. It's just a gap in an understanding on not only the impact to the environment, but the environment's impact on people. And what we utilize and Emerald Solutions is to gather all that data up and to put it into a coherent and useful form, to take the lift off of the company on understanding where and what it is, and to build out that clear path on where they are, where they're going, and how to track.
Gotcha. Okay, we had a question come in, and it says basically the gap between broad commitments and measured actions is where most sustainability programs quietly die, usually because nobody owns the metrics operationally. Does Lee's framework address accountability structure or just data interpretation?
So one of the things we build out for the companies is the actual plan. I don't own inside that company on who and who is assigned to which key performance measures. And one of the things I'd push back on a little bit isn't simply like measuring it. It is, hey, we've set this goal. Hey, but we don't know where we are. We don't know how we're going to track it. And if you don't know how you're going to track it, whether it's a goal and whether it's operationalizing those goals, it's really hard to say, hey, it's Betty's job or it's Rick in accounting's job if they don't have an actual way of tracking where and what they are. And so, well, I can't work inside of their business and say that it is going to be Bobby or Betty or Sue or whoever it is going to be working on that. One of the things that we do provide is here's the clear roadmap on where you are, where you've said you want to go and how you're going to track it. And an actual KPI built out number so that they can follow along. And then it is much easier inside of the business to go, here's how we're tracking it, and here's whose job it is. And now we're handing you something instead of, hey, we have this goal that we set that we want to do 100% renewables, but we don't really have a plan on how we're going to get there or how we're going to do it. But it's your job to do it. And so that's actually where I see the breakdown isn't so much even operational, like, and how they're getting assigned it. It is, okay, even if it is my job, I have no way to kind of track my progress or where and how across it. And so that is one of them on understanding tracking to a goal and who gets assigned it. But what I'd say is where we help empower is actually building out a tracking blueprint so that it can be assigned to someone. It can be tracked, whether it's, if you look at sales, if you look at growth, revenue, like, okay, these are our numbers and where we want to go. We provide something similar for the environmental impact. The company's impact on the environment and the environment's impact on the company to lower that risk and resilience. So now you have actual metrics that when it's assigned to somebody, it's not just a lofty goal that maybe in 5 years or 10 years we'll get to this, but here's where it is. Here's where you need to be hitting those steps to know where we're at. And here's what you're going to do if you have those hurdles.
Ah, that makes so much sense. Well, Lee, I want to thank you so much for making
Sure,
time
thank
to
you.
be here today. If someone wanted to learn more about Emerald Solutions, what should they do?
Please reach out to me. My name's Lee Berry. You can also find us at emeraldresults.com or we're on the QuickBooks Marketplace Live. We're doing a big push right now for providing free to veterans-owned or nonprofits if they're interested in jumping into understanding what their impact on the environment is or the environment's impact on them. Reach out. We are running a free credit for building out for those companies.
Wow, fantastic. Well, thank you again for being here today.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
And I do want to take a moment to thank GuideForce for hosting these sessions. To learn more about GuideForce, you can visit guideforce.com. And we'll see you next time on
Thank you.
the Tech and Space Leaders Show.